How you doing today? All right? You
All
doing good?
good, Steve. I want to congratulate you about your new EP, Signal Cross.
Oh yeah,
I have listened the month before when it released, the
yes,
5th of December.
good. You liked
It
it?
has
Good.
some outtakes from Portrait of Bob Dylan, your album.
That's right. Yeah, some other recordings I made that I didn't use, so I thought, you know what, I'll do that. I'll put them together and kind of
Sounds great.
close the book on the whole project. You know, they're the three remaining tracks, and I was very fond of "I Want You," so I didn't put it on the album, but I thought that was really nice. So I saved it, and then I knew sometime it would come in handy. So there you are. Signals crossed. There you are.
Uh, a lovely record. I mean, it's a lovely EP.
Good, thank you.
I want to talk about you about some um your way of making songs and record and all of that. I want to start with Yours is Not the Grace. That is a song that I really love. It's a really lovely song. It
Which
has
song?
Yours is No Disgrace.
Yeah, yours is great,
Yes,
right?
sorry, my English is not
No, it's
very
good.
good.
Come on.
um, and I really love all. It's a really big guitar work. That song. It has a lot of
Yeah,
guitar breaks, solos.
sure, sure.
I want to ask you because there are some. I mean, the first solo, that is a really lovely solo. I have my guitar here because I thought it could help to have context of what is the parts. I don't know if you don't, it's okay for you or no.
Right, you got a guitar, so what
Yes,
you're going to pick it up, and what you're going to say? What ask me a question. This is all about questions, really. So
yes.
if you want to get the interview really rolling, just hit me with the question.
Okay, okay.
Like go
Sorry.
on.
The question is about the first solo. You have the melodic line, and you have some chords. Um,
Well,
and that
play me which bit you mean, because
yes, yes,
I don't know if
that's
you're
right.
referring to solo or another sort of solo. If you're talking about I don't know. Well, you have to tell me which part. I mean, there's a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yes.
guitar
Sorry,
solo
sorry.
is there's many parts to it. Okay. Yeah, the kind of muted melodic solo that I'm doing using the volume pedal, and what I'm using is the 175, the something like a big muff, sustain pedal, and we've got reverb, and I've got like the warm pickup, most probably on the 175, the front pickup, jazz pickup.
Yes.
So that was all constructed around those chords. I mean, they just keep going on, and Chris
Yes.
is implying that.
Mm.
So that was the structure, and I just invented that tune. I mean, I didn't really write it so much as I found a part there that really worked for the moment, and it was that it was holding that sustain. So I'm playing something before it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So basically, yeah, that comes out of the interchange of the acoustic guitars going. I
Exactly.
mean, there's lots of bits of it, but the bit you called solo is a muted, melodic sort of mournful sort of tune. And as I said, I just kind of invented that. There was the structure, and when I'm playing on top of my structures, it's much easier for me. I just
It's a
seem to
lovely piece
fall
of music.
in. Yeah, I just seem to fall in to finding something that's melodic. So
Yes, and you have this kind of chords that you play. And I want to ask you because those chords are very from you. I haven't listened them in other guitarists.
right,
It's on Roundabout, it's on Distant Sea
yeah,
from Natural Timbre,
was
Valley of
yeah,
Rocks.
yeah. I guess it's a favorite sort of chord inversions that I like, and So sometimes it doesn't start on the root chord, it starts on if it's in E, then it might start on the F sharp minor. So that just gives it a kind of place to be. Yeah, I mean, I've got a variety of them. I think, isn't there a song on Magnification that, I can't remember quite which title it is, but I kind of improvise a lot. And I use that as I mean, I hope it's not exactly the same, but it's my fingering familiarity things. So I guess I would just say that every time I do some recording, and I was thinking of the guitar solo in America, right, which is another story altogether, really. But that's an interesting guitar solo, and basically, I kind of invented that for the moment, that got into that kind of thing. Going back to yours, Disgrace, though, let's stick with that. So, I mean, that solo, Bill Bruford said to me when I put it all together, he said, I wish I'd known what you played. I wish I'd known what you were going to play because I would have played something else. And I said, no, it's the other way around. You played that, so I played this. You know what I mean? So it's a kind of circle that goes round in music of invention. And that solo does a lot of things. I mean, to me, the solo starters, all that stuff. So there's one bit, wah wah. It's a bit wah. It's not. It's panning on the record.
Yes,
But I've always used a wah wah on
left and
stage.
right. Yes.
Yeah, it sounds better on a wah-wah really than the panning. But so basically, you get that section. You get the crawling up the D minor. Da, da, da. Then you get the implied again. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Those lines. So they're all part of the makeup of what you're talking about. What you called the solo, which is the kind of the place it reaches for a short while on the record, which is a kind of thematic place. And
It's like a mini composition in a big composition. I don't know if you worked that in your house or it came from rehearsal and improvising.
No, the bits that I'd worked out was the wah wah bit and the crawling up and da 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 da. All that was structured because we learnt it. We rehearsed that together. What we then had was da 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 da. I had loads of that, and that was my vehicle, if you like. That was my platform to say, well, I'm going to do something. I didn't know what it was, and so that's all part of being a spontaneous musician. Is
Amazing.
that it's a kind of tap you turn on, but you don't really have to do it. You just find yourself in that place, and that's been my experience. I mean, I'm lucky because although I wanted to learn the guitar, the way I learned it was kind of important to me. So basically, I had my goals. I had goals about being a top guitarist, but I was prepared to wait, to build, to strengthen, to be more confident, to have more musical ideas. So that meant that by the time Yes came, it was, I had 10 years of playing. So I was kind of like wanting to do something really interesting, but with really other interesting guys. Because
Yeah.
I kind of like crawled around in bands and always felt, well, yeah, I think I could do better than this, And the better than this was Yes. So that was definitely the case, And I sensed it when I got there. But that was because of the musicality. And the great thing about Yours Is No Disgrace is that it's the only group credited song, because everybody did throw their tuppence halfpenny in. John Anderson threw quite a lot in. And basically the band invented all this music through spontaneous ideas. And you may have heard that the beginning
Yes.
that was kind of affected very much by the introduction to a crime series on television, that started, that had a percussive beginning like that, and there were patterns a bit like that. I mean, we didn't steal it, but we basically made up our own version of a percussive phrasing, that was kind of jerky, and you didn't quite know, boo, the first time you ever heard it, you didn't really know where it was, until the downbeat, the boo. So that song was a terrific vehicle for the new Yes that I was helping to reinvent, and it was really a great time, fantastic time.
Yes, your influence was really big. It changed the band a lot when you get in and start playing with them and recording.
Because
You
I
have,
did have a lot. I mean, I had work. You know, I had the framework for Worm. I had music that I thought wasn't going to ever be released again, but it was. But basically, I had some musical ideas, and I was talking about when I mentioned America again. What happens is when you ask to do a solo, or when you get the opportunity
yes,
to do a solo, you call on your own licks and riffs, you know, and America's got loads of those. They were phrases that I might throw in a solo, you know. They were things that I juggled with, so I put them together. And
yes.
I guess that's what I've kept doing all along is just kind of feeling fresh, looking at the track, thinking about what to play. And I was doing it earlier today. That's why I almost missed this interview because I was in the other side going, I think I'll play this. I suddenly thought, hang on, 3 o'clock Wednesday. So, but basically, that's the joy of music. I mean, I'm very, very lucky. You know, I'm nearly 79 this year, and I'm still
And you're
playing the
playing
bloody
marvelous.
guitar. I mean,
Yeah, and you are
I'm
very
I'm
active musician.
I'm a mixture of kind of content and proud and, you know, happy. So those things are in themselves help to self-perpetuate. The idea that, you know, I've still got recordings, you know,
Yeah.
and yet we've just done, you know, we've just done a lot of work. And also I have a completed album to release this year anyway, you know,
Oh,
that's
amazing.
quite different from anything you've ever heard me do. Well, I think it's very different,
I'm
but
sure.
well, you know, we might touch on that. Oh, I'd like to touch on it actually at some point. But go back to or finish up with Yours Knows Grace because I hope that's only one of the songs you want to talk about.
Yes, and I think it's a really really nice song, and when you play them live, I mean on the Close to the Edge tour, you made with the band an intro that was an improvisation that you could
We
listen.
can't seem to play that again. I know what you mean. I was playing country style, boom,
Yeah.
dang, ka-tum, ding, ding, dang, ka-ding, dang, ding, you know, and we just did it, you know. I mean, I'm not sure we did it every night, but we most probably did it quite often. But it is a nice thing, and we've never quite repeated it. Did you want to ask me how it came, or what?
Yes, I want to ask you. I think it has some. It has the same chords that the intro of the Yes album,
Yeah,
but in different tempo and
yeah. Feel, different feel.
yes, feel.
Yeah. I
Um,
guess I was brave enough to keep doing that, you know, throwing like country at rock, you know, throwing country picking.
yes,
And I always thought country picking was the most fascinating side of playing a guitar. So, well, you know, I don't really play it much. I mean, that's why my solo career this year is going to be much more important. I really am going to be playing solo guitar much more. And but solo guitar, you know, not
yes,
just recordings, you know, that I create with other people, like my son Dylan, who's on all my works and is on my future works as well. So, but playing country guitar seems to be one of the driving forces behind it. And I guess Les Paul even had an influence of country, you know, the way that Mary Ford sung, you know, all her songs. It was kind of like slightly country. And yet he was zany as a guitarist. Chet Atkins was the
yeah,
guy who, you know, instilled it in me. Scotty Moore, Mel Travis, you know, but Chet seemed to pull it all together in his remarkable, delicate way he plays. He plays very delicately. I mean, I've stood next to him when he's playing, and like, I saw him playing, you know, and I was amazed. This hand was hardly touching the strings. I'm a bit more of a belter, unfortunately, but you know, that's the great control. But bringing country into rock wasn't anything I was conscious I was doing. And then, you know, with other songs on the Yes album, like Adventure, you know, there's that
uh,
kind of two-string part of it. That's really jazz. Yeah.
yes. It has a
I mean,
jazz
it's
element.
not that I was trying to be, but I couldn't help but be jazzy. I'd seen Wes Montgomery, you know, I
Yes,
love jazz guitar. I was just pooling ideas, and I think I've kept doing that really.
yes, yes. I want to ask you about a little about that. That many people know that you have a classical influence, a jazz influence, but you have a blues influence too. It's in I Have Seen All Good People. You can see in some licks that you have that kind of. It's a different kind of blues that was common in those years. I mean, no, it's
kind of jazzy blues.
yes,
It's kind of slight flavoring that because a lot of jazz guitarists actually, and Wes was possibly my first example. I noticed
yeah.
is that in fact when they're on stage they play more blues, more than on the record. The records are all like, wow, here's their record. But when they're actually jamming, like at the club, it's like, they get a bit more bluesy. So I guess we can't escape that beautiful side of blues, that comes into play. And it got exploited, it was ignored and exploited and capitalized on and became almost cliche for a while with a lot of great blues guitarists just overplaying and just it was just kind of got silly. And I wanted to leave that well alone. And in a way, I guess that's part of my trademark is not to be too bluesy so that you can't really call me a blues
No,
guitarist.
it's
Even though
okay.
I love it very much, and it's got something to do with my next album though, but we will have to, I guess I'll have to talk about it, but I want to get to some of your questions. I don't want to sit too long with one thing.
Okay,
So
okay,
if you've
okay.
got other songs, bring other songs. It'll be enlivening if you bring another song. Bring
I,
another song in.
I want to
Or,
ask you about clap
yeah.
where it came your hybrid picking because Cheraskin has his pick
Thumb
on,
pick.
yes on thumb and you
Yeah.
and that gave you a different kind of sound. If you were searching that
Yeah.
or
Well, I mean, I came across it
mm,
because I didn't like thumb picks. I mean, when I heard Chet, I thought, oh, you're going to get a thumb pick. It's like, what's this thing on my thumb? I can't do anything. I mean, I can't do it. I couldn't do anything. So I got another thumb pick. It's a bit smaller. No, I don't get this. I don't get this. And I just couldn't really make it work. It's a great shame because obviously part of Chet's technique is that all these fingers are free. And
yeah
he
yeah
does like boom, all the time while going boom. So, yeah, I resigned myself. I was not going to really like thumb picks. And I was going to, pick like you said, I hold the pick and I use it a bit like a thumb pick. But Albert Lee was doing the same thing. And the first time I saw him, he was the first other guitarist, in person that I saw playing like this, like I was doing. He was picking with the same as I do, and I thought,
yeah.
oh wow, Albert, that's great. Well, he became my biggest idol. I mean, I was just fascinated with Albert's playing,
It's amazing.
and I watched him and saw him play, and he knocked me out. And that was before he went strictly country. When he was like I mentioned about rock, blues, and jazz. Chris Farlow and the Thunderbirds were that. They were an R&B jazz rock band. So any of those in any order.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. He's a lovely guitar player. I really
Yeah,
love his
yeah,
work
yeah.
too.
But if you want to stick with thumb picking, obviously Scotty Moore was really important because he was doing it with Elvis Presley. So I heard Presley and went crazy for him, like I did for Bob Dylan and lots of acts that came like the Beatles, for instance. But like basically that was a real eye opener, to hear that kind of music.
Amazing, amazing. I want to ask you about Starship Trooper, a warm section, the end section, that
Yes,
has
well,
those three chords,
yeah.
and it's you always do an improvisation on the solo. I mean, you take the first uh, phrase, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
really hard to improvise there because it has you have to change the scales.
Yes, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not easy, and then it will always work amazingly. And it was a challenge for the band. I mean,
Well, okay, so what I'll just explain that because on a song called, The Ghost of Nether Street or just Nether Street,
for
then
both.
I play that, it starts with that. Do 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 do. So
Mm,
since I thought that record was buried, it was a piece of material I offered, yes. And John said, well, why don't we make it so it kind of builds up slowly and we eventually get to you, it's great.
Yeah.
So that was a really clever idea, but that's what Yes was all about. Somebody else would say something that turned your music around for you. And I always welcome that. And I did it often for other people's music. I said, why don't we do this? Or can I take a break here? Or can I put this riff here? Something. So that's the invention of, of working together. So that gave Yes a classic kind of thing. I suppose it's a bit, Pink Floyd used that technique, where there's something's kind of small, it kind of grows, and, there are obviously, mirrors for that in classical music, and bolero, for instance, or in classical music, like La Canon, by Pachel. So, things that just kind of float and then gradually sort of rise, to the occasion, if you like. And of course, on stage, you might have noticed that we've done that in various different ways. Sometimes there was a keyboard break, first of all.
Yes.
And then there was Chris, who does his own sort of climb, which now Billy Sherwood does, of course. So basically, it's a good device. It's a good...
Yes.
And then when you get up here, you want to just kind of keep going for a bit, which gives me great fun. I mean, sometimes I've got a whole kind of story I do, and then I break away from it and throw something. I don't even know where I'm going, but I'm going somewhere else, and those chords are intriguing. But part of the sound of them starts like this, because the G, E flat, C is all very well, and you hear that first. But then the second time you hear it, it's got a D root,
Yes.
and a B flat root, and a G root. Now that was something I did instinctively. I didn't think, I'll be clever here, I'll do that. But it actually adds a kind of another story to a repeat. So whenever you repeat something, if you can put something in, that isn't different, because obviously a repeat has value in the fact it establishes a mood, and if you keep changing, then it won't. So those three chords, I've got a certain strength, I guess. That E flat offers you risks and opportunities that you wouldn't get if it was just an E major or something.
Yeah.
So I've used that most probably to the max. In fact, sometimes I'm even thinking before a show, what if I could kind of, when that E flat comes, I could be doing. So sometimes I think about improvisation before I improvise. I've never been able to prove to myself that it's worth doing, or actually remember a good idea I've had in the dressing room that then I go out and play. But I guess I do get ideas, and if you're going to be in a band, and certainly if you're going to have an important role in the band, you've got to have ideas. But where they come from, how you get them, is everybody's mystery. I mean, nobody really knows. We just think of things and go, what do you think? But I guess you've got to put conviction behind it. Otherwise, somebody will say, well, that doesn't sound like a good idea before they've even tried it.
Yes, I understand. I want to ask you about Worm, that later on you start, when you start the guitar solo, that was the end of the song, you have the idea to slow down the tempo. And I think it was an amazing idea because it makes it more epic. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah. What do you mean that when we go into the guitar break, it's a bit slower? It
Yes.
may have been another take. It might have been a take we did somewhere else. We did edit, like orchestras do and jazz musicians do.
Yes.
Everybody edits. But that was
I mean live, not on the
live.
record.
Oh, okay.
On live.
Oh, okay. Well, that might be another instinctive thing that nobody's particularly aware of. But if you go into the very first beat a little bit laboured, we might say, boom, then you do get that feeling. No, I like the the magical interplay of one of my favourite things to do on stage. In fact, it is. I mean, besides playing solo, which, as I say, is very precious and very wonderful, but improvising with the band on stage is definitely second to playing solo, because when you don't know what could happen, you don't know what you might do, you don't know what you might think of, and I guess I felt more free to reign and roam and ramble around in about not only yes, primarily yes, because Asia wasn't such a big break band. Although I did used to get long solos of Soul Survivor, and I'd stretch out what we didn't put on the record, which is
Yes.
sometimes as good as what we did, but it wasn't there. But the ends were sometimes quite long too. So the way, well, there was a easy thing about the record was that it's big and grand, and as you say, it's hailed back, and it's and it's wailing, and there's two guitars, and how we got that going was the two tracks of guitar,
Yes.
and then so we choose one, it's the main one, and then it cuts between two, which is quite fun. So we do a little bit of a kind of like, oh, here we are, we're having fun in the studio, things you can't do on stage. But of course, on stage, you've got to do an ending. So
Yes.
then automatically, I guess I may have well been the person to say, well, why don't we end with do 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 do, and then Chris would have said, yeah, but when we get down there, let's double the length of the bars. So then we would have done just like we do on stage. So that ending's always been good, but it's not that it's different. It's just that it's most probably the right ending because we always
Yeah, yes.
ended it.
You mean because it's a fade out on the original album?
Yeah,
Yes.
record fades out, but we have to establish an ending, and so we go back to the theme that I did on The Ghost of Nether Street.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I want to ask you about, well, it always fascinates me the way you could arrange and cover a song only with the guitar. I mean, To Be Over is a really good example for me that you make a really amazing work to make it sound with only with the guitar, and I think
Yeah. What's
it
an
makes your
example?
influence on that composition so evident.
Yeah. What do you mean, like To Be Over,
Yes, To
or
Be Over, To Be
Australia?
Over, or on your record, not necessarily acoustic. Tales from Topographic Oceans.
Oh yes.
You made that arrangements for
Yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
guitar, and
That's
in that
right.
particular case with the guitar and the voice. No, but
Yeah, I did go like Yes did recently or the other year with the Tails edit. I did a Tails edit back then that only started da 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 and
yes,
and skip through things. But oh yeah, I really like doing that. So I only listened. I think yesterday, I was looking at some solo pieces and I noticed that Australia, I put
yes,
it on on Motif Volume One. So I thought, God, I thought I'd lost that arrangement. I thought I'd recorded it for Yes on which I did do also. I recorded a different version for Yes on a 35th anniversary. But
mm,
going back to listening to Australia yesterday, I was really pleased because the difference is that the version on Motif Volume 1 of Australia is on Spanish guitar. But I'm sure that the one I did for Yes was on, a regular Martin. But be that
mm.
as it may, going back to the Spanish guitar, so to take on a song that's got everybody, and it's just a guitar, it's really like, are you joking? Like, are you really serious? And but the whole minimalistic approach of it allows the listener to say, okay, I get this. I mean, you have to get it that far that it's acceptable that you do play it on your own.
It's a lovely
And
version.
yeah, I would say that To Be Over. Yeah, I've been asked a lot about that. Keep being asked to play that, and um, and that's really a nice thing to do. So that followed on from that on my album Natural Timbre. It
Mm.
ends with my own version of To Be Over. Do you know that one? So
Yes,
that's a big thing. I was had so much fun doing all those acoustic guitars, and then on that song it was just mammoth. I mean, I've got everything in the kitchen sink that's acoustic on it, and that arrangement then was streamlined down even a bit more, than it was, there, so that I could play it on my own.
yes,
But the challenge one on Australia, because I think of the two things as quite comparable, To Be Over, Australia, it was a big deal. You know, when I first did Australia, doing all the do de do de do de do do de do de do de do. You know, so I'm delighted you mentioned it because it's a challenge, but it's really quite fun how you can do that. You know, or
Yeah,
one can do that. Or one's brave enough. I mean, it takes a certain amount of bravery to stick your neck out and say, "Oh, I'm just going to play something else." And so, what they used to say, an old cliche in the music business, was that a good song you'll recognize a good song even if there's only a piano behind it. Do you
exactly.
understand what I mean? So people would say, well, like a song is as good as a song's got to be good enough to be just with a piano. Here's the song, you sing it, and I'll play the piano. Like a bridge over troubled water. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a great example came to my mind. So, although, of course, there was also big explosions from Paul Simons to make it big, but at times it was just a voice and a piano, and obviously it's incredible. So taking away the singing is another thing, of course, and playing the melody without the words is, it's not. I've done that with Leaves of Green, da 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 da. Da, da,
Yeah.
and it's really nice. But I don't perpetuate those for too long vocal sections on a guitar if I'm solo because you just got to like hint at it and then not repeat it because there's a lot to ask to keep hearing the tune just played the same but with no words.
Yeah, you,
So
you
the
have made
words, yeah.
you have
Go on then,
made
ask
two
me.
with roundabout that work, that kind of work, and not
Yeah,
necessarily acoustic.
you know what? I did one show, a solo show last year, up in the Lake District at my granddaughter's school, and I did half an hour solo guitar at their
Oh, lovely.
concert. So it was great. And what was the song I was going to mention? What was the song we were just talking about?
And Tales of the Topographic Ocean, Roundabout.
Oh, Roundabout.
Yeah.
So Roundabout. Yeah, thank you. So basically, I often end my show clap, but then I do Roundabout, which is my own solo version, and it's really quite nice to do that. And
Yeah.
there's a great example of what you asked me about. What a whole roundabout without everything else, and you just. But you can, as long as you do the minimal side of it, you know what I mean. It's no good doing 10 minutes of standing there on your own and reproducing that, because that's a bit of much. So just shape it into something much smaller, much more containable, and ideally love it. It's a great song. It's one of the best songs I've ever written in collaboration, obviously, with John Anderson. And basically, that is a song I'm very proud of. So I'm happy to do it, particularly, on the Lonesome. So,
Yeah, it's a lovely song. It's a lovely song. My next question is chain with Roundabout because when I was learning all your guitar work when I was younger, I was always fascinated about the difference between the live versions and the studio versions. And on
yeah.
Roundabout, you have and on the Fragile tour and Close to the Edge tour and all those years, you have a really hard work on guitar that um, you have prepared for the tour. I mean, or for the live environment. I mean, no. Um, I don't know. I can play a little bit. The studio version is something, and on the live you have all those really hard kind of work on the guitar.
Hard work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, sorry. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah. No,
Um,
no. I'm trying to get where you're going with it. So basically, you're asking me about those
difference.
changes. Yeah. Well,
Yes.
like changes, but that's only one version of one part of it that I play. The other parts I play with the harmonics.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
so
Of course.
sometimes, like when we're doing the Fragile album now, then I stick with this with the acoustic guitar for longer than I did, other times. But I just saw a version that I've got of us playing it in 2000, and I used the Switchmaster, and we didn't do the introduction. We just went down, 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 down on a Switchmaster, and we played it in the rock star. It's really, really good, and there was no doubt about it that we could do it like that. But yes, generally, we do it with the Variax acoustic, and sometimes the Switchmaster, but quite often the 175. And yeah, I changed those things. I feel very free to make small adjustments about things, and sometimes I really like what I did years ago. I really like something. Like I'm saying to you, when I saw some clips from tours that haven't been necessarily released before, but they were. I was able to see my own work a lot clearer because of them. And I thought, wow, that was a good way of doing that. I kept thinking, well, that's a good way of doing that. So it's useful to sometimes look back. A lot of guitarists or musicians say, I never listened to my own music. Well, then maybe you never realize, you know, why it was worth making in the first place, or why you could learn from it now about maybe some of it isn't so good and it should be better, and you do things better because you learn from your mistakes. Certainly I have. So that's one aspect. So yeah, I'm free to change, interchange different things, but it's usually what guitar I'm playing maybe has affected it. Like I was just seeing on some shows in 2003, I was using the red Les Paul quite a bit for Close to the Edge. And yet
Oh,
it sounded fine. I thought, oh, that sounds fine. And yeah, it was that. I was expecting to see, my stereo, or now I play it on the ES Artist. But
yeah.
basically, that's the kind of crazy guy I am. I just kind of shift around, and some people say, "Oh, when you came on, I go, that's your Asia guitar, isn't it?" I said,
Yes.
"Well, yeah, but it's my guitar, yeah." And I had it renovated, by Tim Stark, a guy that was my tech once, and he did a great job. It brought the whole guitar alive again, and it's a
Oh,
great guitar. So I suddenly wanted to play it again, and that's something that happens along the way with music and recording. Is really the guitar is a ongoing proposition. There's guitars might need something, or I like guitars at very high standard so I can perform on them. But so if I'm performing on a guitar, God, it's got to be really tidy. It's got to be
yeah,
really.
yeah.
It's got to withstand my like penetration of its characteristics. So they get quite they get worked quite hard. But anyway, ask me another question. Move on.
I want to ask you about the ES Artist guitar. I think it's a curious kind of guitar, the one you use on Asia, and it has an electronic kind. I don't understand very well. Maybe you can deep explain
Well,
there
okay.
how
So,
it works.
well, okay. So that was the guitar I wanted. I knew I wanted a 175. And when I eventually got one, it was like, okay, I don't need anything else, blah, I'm going to play this guitar. So I played it for 5 years without really playing much. I had a Gaia tone guitar, Antoria guitar that I did like, but it wasn't all that good. I didn't use it on stage. So basically, I had the 175, and that guitar still is the most incredible guitar. I mean, I just pick it up and go, oh my God, why don't I play this every second of my life?
Sounds
When I
awesome.
need to. But I also have a lot of fun, moving around guitars, and I do that a lot. I play
Yes.
guitars, bring characteristics, opportunities. They make them complete by, what if I'm not going to play a steel guitar? No way. I'm going to get I want a steel guitar. Ding,
Yeah.
So I want to play all these things, and they're all part of my sound. Part of my noise.
Of course.
And basically, that's more fun really than picking through every song and what you did. The guitar, the texture, the opportunity, the effect of it. All that is still intriguing and interesting. It's flowing along with me. And basically, like for instance, doing some recording recently And I realised that quite a few tracks on this record didn't have any rhythm guitar, electric rhythm. I had acoustic guitars. You know.
Yes.
So, hang on, that song, that's desperate. So I got a guitar, and I went with the electric guitar, and the thing just like settled down. This song is in the pocket. But it's not that you feature that guitar, but the fact that it's the right moment for that kind of, because that's a very important part of my style. I didn't realize that, but when you think about roundabout, the chorus version of that
Yes.
is all about me, about what I want to be as a guitarist. I want to be percussive. I want
Yeah.
to be rhythmical. I don't just want to be melodic. I want to be crunchy and rocky. And sometimes, I love the Rockman, or, I like a whole load of stuff. But I basically like the way I make sounds. That's as important as what they sound like, is how I get there. What concoction have I got, in relation? What can I put this through so I like it? And, so I do that the same on keyboards. I'm looking for something. I mean, I'm not really a keyboard player, but I do quite a lot of keyboards. And basically, I just do. I find a simple thing that works. That's all my goal is. I just did that on a track, and it really did something I was missing. So it's not that I need somebody to come in and play like Rachmaninoff. All I need is a couple of something moving.
Maybe
And
it helps you to get another view from composition, no? Playing keyboards
does.
and
It absolutely does, because I love playing the bass on my. I mean, I don't always release me playing the bass, but I like working on the bass. So I do like putting all that together.
yeah.
But there's a point. There's an interesting point. Like I've given up twice on albums, not given up, but shared with another bass player on two different albums. Spectrum, I shared with Tony Levin. I did half, he did half. And then on Love Is, John Davison, who's brilliant,
Yeah.
played half on all the songs. I played on the instrumentals. So basically, I like to play the bass. I like to play the guitar, acoustic guitar. Yeah, so alto harps, so kotos. So
Yeah,
I am a
so-
juggler more than one guitarist, And I thought I got that from Chet, but when I hear Les Paul, I realised that his effect was before Chet. Before I heard Chet, I heard Les. I heard Les as I grew up,
Amazing.
and his stuff, that he
Yes, it
does.
was very hard to
Man,
play.
but I'm talking about the effect it had on me, what it
Oh,
gave me, the sound, the
yes.
tone, the
Lovely.
the characteristic. He put something in his brain, like Chet does. He put something in his brain that I hadn't heard before. Nobody else does that. So he had a flavour, and I guess that's what I hoped for most in my playing, was that I would have a flavour. I would find my own sound, as if it was one sound. Well, the strange thing is that it isn't one sound.
No.
I'm a multi guitarist. I play multi approaches, as well as multi textures, and I like things like synth guitars. I like. I like all sorts of things. There isn't anything I don't really, I strongly dislike in the guitar world.
Yeah, and anyway, if you play any guitar, I can hear you. I mean, the sound of you is on
Something might
every
come
guitar.
through. Yeah. Well, I'm very flattered that happens. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, that's happened. I want to ask you about "Awaken," the song from "Going for the One." I think it's a lovely song. It's really brilliant, and I always loved all the song, but after the church organ solo,
Oh
you
yeah,
came with a break. You came
yeah,
with a break, and I think that's a lovely piece of music.
yeah.
It always how it developed that how it was.
Well, not too different from Yours Is No Disgrace, when I had a structure. So there was a structure, Rick's been playing and he's been doing, all the organ stuff. And then I come in, and there's a couple of bits where I kind of do some flattened fifth things, but then I go da 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 or whatever and I kick off into something. That was that was an improvisation. I mean, everything I do is an improvisation. That was an improvisation.
Totally.
Now I might have developed it a little in rehearsal, but most of Awaken, I mean, we did rehearse. We knew how to play parallels. But by the time we were actually, it was a very high creative period.
Yeah.
So it was like we took on Awaken, and when we'd done the organ, okay, the next bit, bang. I don't know how we kept the momentum up, but it feels like we played it all in one go. Of course, we didn't, but
Amazing.
that's recording, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But yeah. I mean, what it's an opening for is that it's really great opportunity for the Telecaster, and I hadn't played a Telecaster in that song yet. So when I come belting in with that Telecaster, it's really got the ring and zing, that I wanted to get. And I got the volume pedal there. I think that's a part of it as well. And Eddie Offord was, I know he wasn't. Actually, that wasn't Eddie Offord. Recorded some great guitars for us,
Yes.
but actually, that was a guy called John Timperley. We were recording in Switzerland. Sorry, Eddie, wrong record. But John Timperley, terrific British engineer, and he'd studied and he was with the BBC and he was working in Mountain Studios before
Oh,
Queen bought it. Well, I think we took him. I mean, he lived there. I'm sure he'd worked there anyway, but we booked him, and he was the guy who engineered all the stuff. And I was playing mainly through a dual showman, two dual showmans,
yes.
and basically, that was the kind of noise I was making. And that Telecaster would have been just through a dual showman, and it was loud, and
Yeah, they big amps.
that's not an effect sound. That is a real mean guitar, really belting it out. And I must say, twins and dual showmans, although I swear by Line 6 now, I mean, that's the
Yes.
only amp that's going to go, and they're just wonderfully beautiful. But when you were looking at all the choices, a Fender Twin was a great amp, I mean, it served me well. I just had trouble with the reliability, trouble with the consistency. But basically, they were great. They were dangerous. There was a kind of rock and roll danger guitar about them I mean, one of the reasons I stopped using them was because they did break down, and I can't
Oh,
bear anything that breaks down really. And there's none of that now in the digital world, and with power cabs and Helix or Stadium,
yes.
then you actually can play any way you like, make it sound any way you like, and the amp just delivers it. There is no frustration, there's no speaker, tendencies, there's no, it doesn't like this, none of that at all. It's a wonderful amp. But the beauty of a twin was that they're pokey as hell, and very rock and roll sound. And I did a lot of shows with two of them behind my head, I mean, about 10 foot behind my head. But as opposed to, I don't mind them facing up now, but that's not very effective having an amp tilting back on the floor, because the range of hearing it is only one place. But
Yes.
when it's behind you like this, it's great. Mind you, I mix that. I've got them tilted but quite high. So amps, yeah, we were talking about amps because we had a topic. Were we talking about amps? We got onto
We
amps.
were talking about the Awaken guitar break,
Oh yeah, Awaken.
and
Right,
and
Telecaster.
and you're speaking the sound.
That's all it was. I mean, that is just a Fender in a dual showman or a twin.
Yeah.
I think by then, yeah, we'd been doing the round stage, and I think no, I was using dual showmans. I know there's pictures of. I most probably had it all. I mean, we booked in, into that studio. We stayed there for a long time, and we had all sorts of gadgets and toys and things we could mess around with. Famously, John had a easel and he used to paint, and people did crazy things in that studio making that record. But Awaken was the last Anderson Howe of the 70s song, and
Yes.
it had a lot of great ingredients. That end section, that
Lovely.
was a development, big development. It was a way of returning to, high vibration, go away.
Yeah.
Da, da, da,
Like
da, da,
a
da, da.
reprise.
Yeah, a reprise,
Mm.
exactly. And that's all very quirky. I mean, one thing about our music in the 70s, and think about the beginning of Awaken, that is one of the quirkiest guitars I've ever done. So we've got a pedal steel, just laying the chords down, and then also I've got a Ebo guitar going. So I've asked a
Sustain,
few
a
people.
lot of sustain.
Yeah, I've asked a lot of keyboard players to learn that. Can you play that while I'm doing this? And I'm about to ask Jeff to look at that again because it's very offbeat, and it's very strange, but it does formulate part of the, difference in that music, that makes it quite special. I was talking about quirky. So quirky, but there again, when we've got done quirky, and high vibration is wonderfully quirky, and it's all
Yeah.
bubbly and it's floaty. Then you get and we
Yeah.
launch into this thing, and it's got that marvelous twist of yes, in what time signature? Hang on, the band's playing in a funny time signature, but the singer, he's not even singing in the same time signature. So, but they all fit together.
Oh yeah, it's a lovely, lovely song. I really enjoyed
If you want,
playing
I don't
and
know. I mean, normally I'd say an hour is enough, but we'll do another half an hour if you want. But let's take a break, a little
okay,
break,
okay, yeah, yeah,
2 minute break.
yeah. Thanks a lot. Hi.
So whereabouts are you?
Uh, we were talking about Awaken, and
Yeah, yeah,
I wanted to talk a little
yeah. Well,
about
carry on.
about drama, the
Right.
the album. Um, I wanted to talk about the solo of Machine Messiah.
Oh yeah.
It has a lot of solos, but it has one that
And I'm just waving at somebody. There's a
it's
couple of
okay, it's
people
okay.
leaving. No, they're not leaving. Okay. I've got a couple of people working outside, but they're fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Do da do da 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 do. That
Yes,
one.
the one that came from the keyboard. Um,
Yeah.
um, that's a lovely, lovely solo. I think it's really, really amazing work from you.
Yeah. Well, thank
Also,
you very much.
yeah, yes, I really love it, and it came from improvisation too. Or it was because it's very
Fundamentally,
intricate.
well, I mean, yeah, I may have doodled that one, and showed the guys this idea. Drama was a very collaborative project, but most of the things I played, I invented when I went off to do the guitars because we got in a position where we we were running two studios at once. So I
Oh,
was in one studio doing the guitars, and they were doing vocals and starting the keyboards in in the main studio. So I had 2 weeks to do the guitars on drama, and I basically just roared into it, and I had a good setup, I had my steels and my guitars, and I just went through. So I'd guide guitared everything that was there. We had backing tracks. I was playing to the backing track. So we had the structure. I mean, Drama is a unique album in the sense that it's so combustious and creative, and it knows where it's going. It's got a direction it wants to go in, and that's partly because Chris Allen and I worked up things like Tempest Fugit, before we met Jeff and John,
yeah.
Jeff and Trevor.
Trevor.
So basically, we had some structures going. They brought in a load more. And so the way we got the backing tracks recorded at the Townhouse Studios, and then they stayed, I left. And when I went back and said, I finished 2 weeks later, put the guitars on, they really freaked and went, they're so bright. And somehow they'd been working or I'd been working in a very bright area. I said, well, these are bright because, is bright. The guitar is a bright instrument. So I'm not making a big point of that. That was just an aside, really. So these guitars are very bright, which is an EQ thing. So I said, well, I think they're all fine. We've gone through them. Then Jeff and I did a lot of work together where we looked at his parts and my parts, and we kind of contoured the shape of the album very much what would happen there. Later on, oh yeah, so you want to stick with talking about that solo, yeah. So that is like a theme, I mean, I play it twice before that, once in G, and another time you've got to watch out which one you're playing, because when you look at the fingerboard, you're into F sharps and E flats and things, and all sorts of quite colourful thing. Well, you start in E flat anyway. That's a very ecliptic solo. It's really got to go somewhere. And yeah, well, it's coming back to me a little. It's funny because now I would have had the first half of it, and this was the way we worked at the time. I mean, I knew I had that. That was a line. But where I went there. So that was the real solo. What happened after? So that would have been done by dropping in there. I've got the solo. The first half of the solo isn't really so improvised, and the second half is going to be improvised. I don't know what it is, so I start playing. So we, take a few stabs at it, see where it's going, and then maybe do some more takes, and then sit and possibly contour. Take one is great at the beginning, then it's take two, So we might have done some comping, and we'd comp the solos together. Quite a lot of solos were comped. They had to be very carefully comped. They had to work in solo. In other words, you couldn't detect that you were changing guitars in solo. You just listened to it on its own. So you had to check that it was all telling the story, holding the focus, and that was part of the game you played. That you could have that choice, and so yeah, I love that opening up. That you can do. You bring the band to a halt. We knew where we were going. So all of Drama is done with the same spirit I try to do my records, and we do the last three records. It's a good spirit, there's a good feeling going on all the time. Everybody's keeping the feeling. And that happened, on the early Yes records, the Yes album Fragile, Close to the Edge. And it got harder in the interim period. People had different enthusiasms for different kinds of Yes. Patrick joined, and it went very creatively, kind of almost Euro jazz. Yes,
Yeah.
So we went back with Rick, and it got very kind of traditional and authentic. And Awaken, we were just talking about, but the Tomato experience wasn't so clever and wasn't so joyful or exciting. Although the music's quite good, it's all sounded. We were a bit lost in the production sense. But when we got to Drama, we did have a direction, as I said earlier, and the whole album has that sensibility that we were quite sure that this is all right. We like this. We want to do this, and there's a whole story I could tell you then. I'm not going to, but yeah, basically that could have been a great direction for Yes if we could have established a much more repertoire, with that lineup, because. That was very comfortable to play on stage, and marvelous when we went back and played Drama as a record, with another album. So it's a nice album to go back to.
Yes, it's a lovely record. I think about Tormato that when the band with you did Keys to Ascension, you made with them a new version of Onward.
Oh yeah.
And you make an intro, a guitar intro. I think.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah.
It's a lovely part that too. I really love it. I think it's a really brilliant guitar playing and very emotive.
Yeah. I got my foot in the door there. Do I play it on a Spanish acoustic guitar,
Yes.
or is it? Yeah. So that's pretty. Now that's on Keystone Central. That's
It's just
something I'd forgotten really, because strangely enough, I think one tour we gave that solo to Jeff. Jeff did a sort of introduction, and so we do that sometimes. So that's a nice little thing. Like we were saying about yours, Disgrace. We kind of kick the ball around. The stage requires that really. You can't, unless you're playing a whole album, which is you're playing a whole album, and
yeah.
that's said, that's what you say, and that's what it is. But if you're playing a song individually, it's quite interesting to bring a freshness to it,
Exactly.
So
It keeps
drama.
them alive, no? It keeps the music alive. Those
Yeah.
variations, those improvisations, that energy.
Well, I'd like to mention something that's nothing to do with what we're talking about, but when as a performer, I've played drama. I played drama when we did the drama tour.
Yes.
But when we came back to the song, I was amazed at the effect that Machine Messiah had on me. Was that I lost control in where you're talking about on stage. I would go kind of nuts, I most probably crouch and go. I couldn't help it, and I'd kind of get very elevated and physical, which isn't something I do a whole bunch. I don't do that on purpose, and I don't do it because I want to look like a rock star. I do it because the
You feel
music's kind of pushing me into doing this, acting weird. And I let my body do that, and it's great. But sometimes I'd find myself, wow, what, what am I doing out here, kind
it's
of
your
thing.
connection with the music. It's your connection
Yeah,
with
it
the
just
music.
drives me sometimes, and makes me go a bit wild, which is still a funny thing that's still happening. Uh, but that's my little story about that feeling of letting go is unstoppable. Anyway,
It's
question.
amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I think we have covered all
Oh,
the
good.
questions, Steve. I'm
Terrific.
really thank you about the opportunity and you have given me
So
to
what
interview.
is that an Epiphone or something? What guitar
Yes,
is
it's a Sheraton 2 from
it's nice.
1994. Yes, I have changed it. It has a baritone, like your
Oh, it has a
ESP45.
baritone. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yes, it has a different antiquity Seymour Duncan mics.
Oh, Samuel
It's
Duncan's. Yeah.
yes. Above that, I
Sounds
want.
nice.
Oh, thanks. I really love this guitar. I really
Yeah,
love it.
yeah. Well,
I
it's
want.
good. If you love a guitar, then that's the one you should play most often.
Yeah, yeah. About making custom guitars, I think it was a really great idea from you to custom your Telecaster and have that this Gibson pickup on it.
Yeah. Well, it's not unusual. A lot of players have done that before. The unusual thing I did, though, was that I really didn't like. I don't care for them much now. The Telecaster switch next to the volume controls, so I couldn't change pickups quick enough. So I put the Gibson. I mean, it's naughty to put that in a 1955 Telecaster. We gouged a hole, put a Gibson toggle up here. That's what is pretty unusual. So, to be honest, I could bother to regret an awful lot of guitar adjustments I made, like affecting them too much. It's kind of silly. I had a bit of a wave of it when I wanted to customize guitars.
Yeah,
Really not a good idea. Don't do it. You can usually regret it. A
yeah,
guitar the way it comes, in the most part. I mean, if you change a bridge saddle or, it doesn't matter. Change the knobs even. But if you do something over that, you can get interference. If you make anything physical. Anyway, it's been really nice talking to you, Julian.
yeah.
We could do this again sometime in the future and
Thanks,
pick up on where we are. All right then?
thanks a lot, Steve. I'm very happy that we made it.
Oh, you didn't tell me where you are, though. I've forgotten. You're
I
in
came
Spain.
from Argentina. I live in Argentina,
Argentina.
apart from
Yeah.
the city, but
Oh, yeah.
yes, yes, I love
Okay.
trees and green
Argentina
space.
was the first South American country I went to solo. And I had an amazing tour in Argentina. It's very memorable in my mind. Wow, the people were quite emotional, and it was great. It was great. I play down in La Plata somewhere down south from Buenos Aires.
Yes.
Anyway, all the best.
Well,
Take
thanks,
care and all the best. Stay healthy.
thanks a
And
lot. The same to you.
okay, bye.
Bye bye.